Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm Jerry Layden, CEO of CyberSaint. I'm excited for this conversation for a couple of reasons. One, because it's one we're hearing across the industry, across all of the enterprise. How do you turn security data into something that actually drives business decisions? And I'm joined today with Mark Hughes, Global Managing Partner of IBM Cybersecurity Services, Fabio Campos, Global Managing Partner of IBM Cyber Strategy and Risk organization. Mark leads IBM's Cybersecurity Services, and Fabio has been at the center of driving innovation across the consulting and security programs. Together, we're going to dig into what's changing in the market, what organizations are still getting stuck, and how the partnership between IBM and CyberSaint is starting to solve this problem, bringing together IBM's scale and advisory with platform-driven approach to cyber risk. So let's get started. Mark, I have a couple questions for you. Organizations have more security data than ever. Why is it still hard to turn that data into clear, actionable decisions?
That's a great question, Jerry, and it's really good to be here talking today about getting to the point where we can actually extract actionable intelligence out of that blizzard of data. So the first thing I think is often most organizations are completely overwhelmed with the amount of data that they have. If it's coming from devices or if it's coming from security tooling, all of that logging that goes on, and what that produces is just a blizzard of information that really does often mean that people can't work out what actually is important. So I think that's the first thing. There's just so much of it. And the second thing is that I often find that information comes from various different sources. And often those sources are often in their own silos in their enterprises. Yeah. And so what I think many organizations have really been troubled with for years is really good information, good data, but exists in one part of an organization that the other part of the organization that really needs that data can't unlock and see the value of. Yeah. And so they're not really using all of that security data that's out there to actually then turn it into what we really want to get to is risk-based decisions, right, to really help the organization improve their security posture.
Yeah, absolutely. Fabio, are you seeing the same thing, or what else are you seeing?
Absolutely. It's kind of hard to go after Mark to talk about this, but I know essentially we see tremendous uptake for the need, right? So companies still struggle to make decisions or make the good value of what they have. So what we do now is essentially bring that intelligence, the automation component with the vast in-depth expertise that we have in helping organizations make sense of that in a much faster and capable fashion. So really pleased with this partnership, Jerry, that we can combine everything we've been doing, where we're going, with your capabilities of CyberSaint as well. Yeah. So thank you for that. Yeah.
And Fabio, where do you typically see the disconnect between security operations, between risk, and more importantly, between the business organizations?
Well, I'm going to leverage a little bit of what Mark said here. So we have silos within the organization, right? So different stakeholders, different people that need to use that data and make use of the results coming from that data as well. So the disparity becomes with the fight within the budget. That's one. Right? And the two, the purpose of what they need to do with that data for different reasons, and they don't necessarily leverage the capability of putting that together to make more sense and capitalize all together, I would say. So the challenge will be coming from all these different needs, different places not talking to each other. So we have the power of making that reality for the organizations today to use that data all combined.
And that really gets back again to the siloed issue, right, that they're having.
I also think, Jerry, and the way we're working together with CyberSaint really is unlocking the benefit of being able to make sense of the data, often in the context of complex regulatory environments as well for our clients. Where in the past, you've often had risk teams and where they have almost often looked at cyber-related data and security-related data sort of as a separate thing, slightly mysterious, slightly not too sure. Everyone's a little bit anxious about when they come to that because we sort of make it in the security world a little bit different. Whereas in reality, when you actually see the consequences of what happens when things go wrong in organizations, these are hard downs. These are real impacting things that happen to enterprises and to people who are victims of the type of threat actor activity, where if they had managed to unlock the value of all of that data as Fabio was saying, in terms of really breaking down those silos, making sense of it, recognizing that it's data that needs to be processed like every other piece of data that can turn back into a risk-driven decision-making framework for an organization, which means you can put proportionate controls in place.
Right.
That's why I see many organizations really still struggling around.
Yeah, absolutely. And being able to take that data real time, you allow your customers to provide great outcomes for your customers as well, right? So. There's a lot of noise around AI and cybersecurity, right? I mean, that's all everybody's talking about, how it's affecting cybersecurity companies in the industry now, who's going to be around, right? Where are you seeing it the most, and what does it look like, from your customers? Where are they really struggling and where they need the help?
I think the first thing, actually, funny enough, it comes back to how they make sense of what's actually going on in their enterprise. So first things first, it's actually nothing to do with the technology. It comes down to good governance.
Right.
And so many organizations that I talk to, where they are thinking about how can they really benefit from the AI in their stack to really improve their customer contact, their business operations, their processes. How do they embrace AI in that environment? Everyone knows that there's massive gains to be had from that. Fantastic. But how do they go about actually then introducing that into an enterprise in a secure way where they can make risk-based decisions about what's appropriate, what levels of access there should be or not? So the first thing is actually about, is there a governance framework in place in an enterprise where they actually can assess and understand what they're actually seeing and what they want to do, and actually then create the conditions to allow the AI to be introduced through the processes that need to come in place to ensure that the right controls are put in place around those that AI that they're putting in place, be it agents, models, whatever, model behavior, all of those runtime aspects as well. So I think that's the first thing, Jerry, that I see that organizations are really struggling with. Have they got the capability to flex their governance to be able to do that? As opposed to some organizations that are really a bit of a free-for-all, and it's like little hobby projects or experimentation going on in an organization, which is potentially quite dangerous.
Right.
And I think that I'm curious that you think that some organizations who are very tech savvy and that they might be early adopters. Often, I'm not finding that. I'm finding that those organizations that have governance at their heart, have a strong culture of being able to work within their organization well and flex well. They're the ones who are getting ahead because they've worked out how to introduce the AI into their organization and get the benefits from it quickly.
Right.
So doing it in a safe and secure way.
Absolutely. And Fabio, we talk about AI and business process change, right? And that's the hurdle that we're trying to get over and utilize AI to do that, right? Can you talk a little bit about that and what you were saying?
Absolutely. Jerry, and you and I speak about this with different organizations, Mark and I as well. So I'll take one step further, Mark, beyond the foundational piece of the governance, is defining what do you want to do with it, right? So what's the objective? Where do I want to get to it? And really capitalize on the power of AI and automation and the components that come with that. And we also stumble on something critical, which is the change. People don't like change for the most part. So we're talking here really adopting process changes that will require behavior change. The cultural component is critical to that change as well. So will be a combination of different factors. As Mark was saying, the governance is non-negotiable, and the component of where do I want to land and how I'm going to get there. So the how comes with the people, right? The changing the process and the cultural aspect of those things.
Yeah, and when we talk about the partnership, we talk about that a lot, right? We talk about AI, we talk about automation, driving that change, right? Forcing the business process change. And I think service industry has really struggled with that, right? They've been really reluctant to make that change. Where do you see that moving forward, Mark? And where do you see our partnership coming into that and helping IBM really change the way they deliver services?
Yeah. So, I think that as you said earlier on, the world that we live in now is changing quite rapidly. So let's really get into what AI is actually going to be doing for us. If we go beneath how we have governance to control that, but actually what it's going to deliver, fundamental, foundational re-engineering of business processes. Just think about our own daily lives, about how we're now using tools that we didn't think could do half the things they could do just a few months ago, and how that's changing our interactions with organizations as well. So here at IBM, what we're really focused on is how do we, with our partnership between the both of us, is how do we end up with really be able to take clients into a place where we can assess that, we can help them work out what's going on, and then most importantly, help them get ahead.
Right.
Because without really being able to have the tools at the fingertips of those organizations to be able to create those assessments, to understand what risk there is about how they introduce that into their into their enterprise, and continuously review that,
Right.
then they can't take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So really getting down into it, I think that's really where our partnership is really almost illuminating for the enterprises that we're working with, the fact that they can now actually get a handle on what that risk is, and actually then start making sure that they know how to control it and which levers they need to pull to really now take and exploit what the opportunity is for the enterprise. And when I look at those enterprises, they are only just beginning to really reimagine what they're doing, and how our partnership is helping them to unlock the potential benefits is really foundational to that.
Absolutely. And Fabio, we've been in front of customers together, right? We talk about automation. You see the light bulb go on. You talk about AI. They want to get there faster. What are they really asking from IBM services to help them?
I'm sorry. I see a couple of things, Jerry. Few aspects. Up until now, we see a lot of the action happening in what I call doing security, protecting, right? Putting things in place, monitoring, responding. And this partnership helps us actually add the not so security driven, doing security per se, but bringing the risk and control language all together, and links to something that we are launching, right, Mark, the autonomous security program, which links all these agents, the digital workers, coming together on a layer that is foundational for everything, which is the risk and controls. So today we have the ability to kind of help the organization understand where they want to go with their security programs, linking that to the risk and controls, which is normally a secondary step sometimes, and make it that easier for companies to link to the doing security part. And I would say leverage all this combination of capabilities for there's something that is, really driving our concern, which is adoption.
Mm-hmm.
So how we help them adopt is faster, right? That is not, I'm not going to say seamlessly, but hopefully there, but make it easier for the company to do that and look at this entire portfolio of domains of security, understand what the risk exposure really is.
Right.
So we see that tremendous uptake on that.
Yeah.
Jerry, I was with a leading industry analyst just a few minutes ago, and they said, what are you doing in this space? And I said, this is almost the key piece, which is almost the unlock, right? And I said, the partnership we have with CyberSaint is all about now getting into security risk in a way in which people have never thought about it before, but in that continuous controls and compliance monitoring space, where how we now can actually make that for real, as opposed to the stuff that we've done for years on spreadsheets and all those sorts of things, all of that now totally transformed. And I think we're right at the cusp of it. And they said to me, that is the thing that begins to create that virtuous circle, that cycle of being able to assess risk, understand, as Fabio was saying, what the controls are, how effective they are, and how you can revisit that on a continuous basis. That's really when that autonomous security program really comes to life.
Right.
Because without that, you're still living in the world where, you might have done a lot of automation, but you're not really getting to that place where you can really be truly autonomous, because you don't understand what and how you're managing the risk associated with those controls. So this is really, really foundational.
And where
can I add something to that?
Absolutely.
If I can get off script a little bit.
No.
I think there's another component here, Mark and Jerry. We have not been able to speak one single language in the first, second, and third lines of defense of any corporate governance. Mm-hmm. We have the power of doing that today.
Right.
So just want to add that.
And that's the real time, right? Real time decision making, real time understanding where the risks are. Right.
Yeah. I've sat in so many risk committees, in board audit risk committees in various enterprises. I've been a CISO myself, presented in those committees, and now the potential to actually have real time insight is totally game changing. And I think it's going to, back to my previous point about governance and organization, it's going to change the way those functions and businesses operate in the future.
Right. And we see different parts of the business now caring, right? The C-suite, we see the CFO being more involved in these decisions, right? We see the CISO talking to the CFO on a regular basis and trying to buy down risk. Is that what you're seeing as well out there, and how is that impacting how you talk to your customers?
And as much as we dive into the risk exposure aspect, I'm going to bring this whole story together for those stakeholders that are not directly day to day involved in security. They live and fear what they don't know. Right. So bringing that component of risk exposure language to the other stakeholders within the organization helps tremendously their participation, engagement, and even drive, depending on the organization structure and how they're going to set up their own corporate governance structure. But the point is, I think we bring this story together on the sense that we can do security, help the organization make sure that they're looking at what they need to look at, and communicate properly across all the levels that we need to help them with.
Yeah. And Mark, how do you see this? How fast do you see this moving forward? How are your customers embracing this, and what are they demanding from your organization as you move forward?
I mean, I think that at the beginning, to be frank, in many respects, these worlds of risk management and security risk understanding in the context of overall risk, and as Fabio mentioned, the 3 lines of defense, and how that is actually really operating at scale has not been particularly mature until now. And what I see now is that there's this sort of aha moment, which is especially in the context of how organizations are deploying AI, where there's a still question that needs to be answered about what risk is being introduced through the introduction of the AI technology for these enterprises. And what I see is now suddenly there's this thing where we can actually use the AI in the context of what we're doing here, in the partnership that we have, to now really bring that to life. Right. So I see it is that we're at a place where organizations just beginning to realize that this is now for real, and that this isn't some secondary exercise that someone does on a sort of, in a bunch of PowerPoint slides and things, but this is now for real time, and also really being able to understand what the implication of changes are. And I often think what's quite interesting when you look at the characteristic things about cyber. Many organizations, obviously, they all manage risk all day, every day, but cyber is often impacts an enterprise from the outside in, as opposed to from the inside out. And so that often, how that changes and what threat actors are doing, has often been really quite hard for organizations to get their head around, which is that you can sort of be okay, and then a new TTP comes up from a threat actor, and that can change things quite dramatically. And without being able to, in the past, having been able to quantify that in real time has been a real challenge. That now changes through the partnership that we have and through what we are doing. That, I think, is a big game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about fully autonomous security program, right? That's the end goal, right? And you had mentioned earlier that we're in the first stage of that. How quickly do you think we can get companies there, and how quickly do they want to get there, that fully autonomous program?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's going to be various organizations going to adopt in different ways. But more to the point, that autonomous security program is about agents now organizing, as it's in the name, autonomously. So those agents are going to start doing stuff in a way in which they start forming themselves, agentically, and then now autonomously through ambient AI. That's how we see it operating. So I think in some respects, organizations, some of them are going to find themselves moving at the pace of the AI learning and being able to interoperate in a safe and controlled way through the fact that we can risk assess that and keep that right. But almost in some respects, those programs are almost going to take on their own life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Fabio, any?
I would tie this, Mark, with some of the earlier comments you made about the establishing the right governance in the beginning. And making sure that we have the guardrails in place, not to avoid or prevent anything from happening, but really putting in the direction that the organization is going in the right strategy. But absolutely, it's going to be, is already, right, a moving part that I know companies have to kind of go. I don't think there's turning back. And we establish our own strategy around that as well. So it is the right moment.
Yeah. I mean, Fabio, again, you and I have had many discussions on this industry has been very reluctant to change, right? We talk about the business process change, but to talk about spreadsheets, Mark, right, in 2026, that they're still using spreadsheets, to me, blows me away every day. And, I've thought in our discussions, we've talked about everybody's looking for an easy button, right? And now the AI agents are providing that, right? They're really providing that easy button to be able to make the move to autonomous security program. So. I think it's really what it comes down to is this isn't just about better tools. It's about bringing together the right capabilities that actually operationalize cyber risk. Right? We've talked about that today, and the partnership with IBM and CyberSaint. We were extremely excited when we first started talking to you a couple of years ago now, Fabio, that our vision was really clear, right? And it's as simple as taking taken security information and put it in business terms, right? And that's where you guys have been moving that ball, and we see that you're a leader in this industry, and it's been great to be part of that partnership. So, we did cover it's just it's a shift from static to continuous real-time autonomous data, and we're really happy to be part of this partnership as we move forward. So Mark and Fabio, really appreciate the conversation. Again, we're excited as we move forward together. This is going to be a great year, and we're really happy to be partnering with you guys. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Rushdie.
Jerry,
Yeah,
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.